today we'll start about the thermocouple materials, and this class is important for third semester diploma electrical students. So before going to the topic, let us understand what is thermocouple and what are the materials from which it is made of. So when two wires of different metals are joined together, an EMF exists across the junction, which is dependent on the type of the metals or alloys used and also directly proportional to the temperature of the junction. When one tries to measure this EMF, more junctions are to be made, which also will give rise to EMFs. When all the junctions are at the same temperature, the resultant EMF will not be zero. So students, we if we have to make a thermocouple, we require two different metals, and their junction, you can say that when these two metals are joined, then in the junction only there exists a potential difference or an EMF. So when one tries to measure this EMF, more junctions are to be made, which also will give rise to EMFs. When all the junctions are at the same temperature, the resultant EMF will not be zero. This resultant EMF proportional to the temperature difference in the junction is called thermoelectric EMF. For instance, students, suppose we have chosen a similar material and we have just joined those similar materials or same material together at a constant temperature or a particular temperature at the junction. There will be no EMF exist, since this material are of same materials or same kind. But if the materials are of different, then an EMF will exist, though their temperature or the temperature between the junction is same also, there will be an EMF, and this is known as your thermoelectric EMF. The EMF produced by a thermocouple is very small, but it can be measured with reasonable accuracy by a sensitive moving coil voltmeter, which can be calibrated in terms of temperature. As mentioned earlier, the thermocouples are made of different materials. The materials are to be used with will depend upon the range of temperature to be measured. So the difference in the temperature can be measured by a sensitive voltmeter or millivoltmeter, or so this will be calibrated in terms of voltage. So by a millivoltmeter we can record or I mean we can take the readings of the voltage across the two different metals or the thermocouple. So by using thermocouple and by having a proper millivoltmeter or sensitive voltmeter, we can measure the voltage, and thereby calibrating in terms of temperature, we can measure the temperature calibrated in form of voltage. Now in table 7.1, that is material, range of temperature and EMF at 500 degrees centigrade is given. Let us discuss. So for copper or constant tan, the range of temperature is from minus 200 to 400 degrees centigrade, and at 500 degrees centigrade it is 27.6. For iron and constant tan, it is from 0 to 900 and 26.7 EMF at 500 degrees centigrade millivolt. For nickel and nickel chromium, the temperature range is 0 to 1100 and the EMF is 10 millivolt at 500 degree centigrade. Platinum and rhodium. So the temperature range for this thermocouple is from 500 to 1400 degrees centigrade, and the EMF across this thermocouple is 4.5 millivolt at a temperature of 500 degrees centigrade. Now thermocouple can be used for measurement of temperature. Depending upon the range of temperature to be measured, proper materials are to be chosen for a thermocouple. If one junction called the cold junction is held at a known constant temperature, the EMF produced becomes measure of the temperature of the junction. This principle is known as thermocouple pyrometer. Now let us discuss about bimetals. Now bimetal is made of two metallic strips of unlike material or metals, alloys with different coefficient of thermal expansion. At a certain temperature, the strip will bend and actuate a switch or a lever of a switch. The bimetal can be heated directly or indirectly. When heated, the element bends so that the metal with greater coefficient of expansion is on the outside of the arc formed, while that with smaller coefficient is on the inside. When cooled, the element bends in the other direction. Alloys of iron and nickel with low coefficient of thermal expansions are used as an element with the bimetallic strip. The other element consists of materials having high value of thermal coefficient or thermal expansion, example iron, nickel, constantan, brass, etc. Bimetallic strips are used in electrical apparatus and in device such as relays and regulators. For example, in order to maintain a constant temperature in a heater, a simple bimetallic regulator may be used. So students, let me show you with the help of a diagram at how a bimetallic strip operates. So suppose this is the line which carries a current. Let us for the instant say it is having a plus charge, right? But in case of AC it will have phase, we can call it as phase, not as positive. In case of DC only we can call it as positive. So for the instance, for the sake of simplicity, let us consider that this wire is having positive charge. Now if we connect a bimetallic strip this way, and a connector switch will be over there, so this connection will make when this bimetallic strip will have a normal temperature, but during heating it deforms into a U shape. That means when it will get to its original temperature it will just connect like this. So I think I am very much clear that for a particular temperature or after getting heated, this bimetallic strip which was earlier in a straight form, it bends a little in this way. So what happens is we have a connector, these two are the connector switches. So when we supply current and due to any reason it gets heated up, what happens? The bimetallic strip expands or it bends. So while bending it disconnects it from the supply, and when it comes back to the original position it again restores or switches on the supply. So this is quite oftenly used in mixers or grinders. In any simple machines where the interruption is required, we can use this kind of bimetals. So by using bimetals we can disconnect the circuit and automatically it will get connected also. Now the strip will be heated enough to bend and break the circuit directly or through immediate intermediate relay. Soldering materials. An alloy of two or more metals of low melting point used for base metal is known as soldering. The alloy used for joining metals is called soldering or solder. The most common solder is composed of 50% lead and 50% tin. Its melting point is about 185 degrees centigrade. Tensile strength is 385 kg per centimeter square, and electrical conductivity is about 10% that of copper. Now, many commercial solders, however, contain large percentage of lead and some antimony with less tin. Good quality solders for electrical joints should have at least 40% tin, as the electrical conductivity of lead is only about half that of tin. For proper soldering, flux is to be used. So, students, you should have studied in your basic electrical that for proper soldering we require a flux. In soldering process, the application of flux serves to remove oxides from the surface. They deoxidize the metal at the time of the soldering element is added. For ordinary soldering, zinc chloride is a common flux. So zinc chloride is a common flux that is used in case of your ordinary soldering. Tallow, rosin or olive oil may also be used for soldering. Sometimes flux is incorporated in the solder wire itself. In such a case, no extra flux is necessary. So in those kind of wires or soldering wires, we do not require any additional fluxes. So they will itself act as a solder and fluxes. Solders are of two types. Basically, soft solders are there and hard solders are there. Soft solders are composed of lead and tin in various proportions. Hard solders may be any solder with a melting point above that of lead tin solders. Common hard solders are silver solders, aluminum solders, copper zinc solders, etc. Hard copper solders have high melting point and therefore are of used for metals which can withstand high temperature. The most important application of soft solders in electronic device and of hard solders in power apparatus for making permanent connections. Now, solders and fluxes for aluminum cable joining. Now, students, aluminum cannot be soldered using conventional solders, and fluxes in view of extremely tough oxide film present on the surface of aluminum. So, in London Associates, Fry's Metal Foundries developed a suitable solder and flux for the joining of aluminum, and as a result, Alka P solder was developed. So, with the invention of Alka P solder, these were prepared under special process from exceptionally high purity raw materials. So the name of the flux is IR number 7 flux. It is an improved variety of organic flux which is used with Alka P for aluminum cable joining, because as you know this aluminum cable lacks solderability because they cannot be soldered easily. So for their soldering purpose, because in electricity we require the material to possess solderability. Without solderability qualities, those materials will be very least used in inside the field of electricity. So this Alka P serves for the soldering of the material like aluminum in the field of electrical engineering. This on decomposition at a temperature a little below the jointing temperature of approximately 316 degree, that is approximately 600 degree Fahrenheit, removing the refractory oxide from the strands of the core and makes the surface receptible to solder. Because of low specific gravity of the flux, residues they are replaced by the solder, forming a sound metal or metal contact. It possesses an added advantage over the inorganic type of reaction fluxes and welding techniques in as much as a soldering temperature can be maintained, and it is as low as your 316 degree centigrade, which is about 600 degree Fahrenheit, thus avoiding damage of the paper impregnation and the insulation. Now we will discuss about fuse and fuse material. So a fuse is a protective device which consists of a thin wire or strip. This wire or strip is placed in the circuit. It has to protect so that the circuit current flows through it. So now students, basically this fuse is a safety device or a protective device which is inserted in the circuit in series. Basically this element which we will use for a fuse material should easily melt down or break down during high current cases or your short circuit cases. So accordingly we have to choose or select the material. So this wire or strip is placed in the circuit. It has to protect so that the circuit current flows through it. When this current is too large, the temperature of the wire or strip will increase till the wire or strip melts, thus breaking the circuit and interrupting the supply. The current is cut off by the fuse as follows. Now, upon melting of the wire, the metal ions form an arc and constitute a conducting path uh, through which the current continues to flow. In order to quench the arc, because this arc is the only medium through which the conduction takes place now after the interruption. So, in order to quench the arc, the resistance in the arc must path must rise to such an extent that the available voltage is no longer able to sustain the arc. For a proper quenching of the arc in a fuse, the following measures can be taken. The material chosen for a fuse wire is that whose metal ions after melting have low conductivity. Silver or an alloy of silver are such materials which can be used for fuse material. If the temperature of the arc path is kept low, its resistance and therefore the voltage drop along the arc will be high due to less mobility of the metal ions and electrons. The cooling of the arc in a fuse can be achieved by embedding the fuse wire in quartz as it is done in cartridge and HRC fuses. Now, the higher the pressure of the gas in which the arcing takes place, the higher will be the required voltage to sustain the arc. So, this is achieved by putting the melting wire in an explosive or explosion tight enclosure in which a pressure is automatically built up by the heat produced by the arc. From the discussion, it is evident that rewirable fuse is not at all suited to quench an arc properly because any type of wire can be used. No proper cooling of the arc can be provided and no pressure can be built up. Although still widely used in the country, rewirable fuse should be discarded, and the uh, instead of cartridge fuses should be used. So in the diagram shows a cross section view of a cartridge fuse. So here, as you can see in your screen, that we have a cartridge fuse. The parts are indicating disc. What is this disc? This disc will indicate that whether the fuse is healthy or it has been, punctured, right? So it will indicate with a mark. So with the markings only we can know whether the fuse is healthy or not. Now porcelain, there is a porcelain layer of porcelain which will help for insulating this fuse wire. We have a quartz fuse element and indicating wire. So this is the cross section view of cartridge fuse. Now the properties of fuse material. A fuse material should possess the following properties. So it is very essential, students, many times, and it is quite important also to know the properties of a fuse material, because it is quite often asked in your semester questions that what are the properties of a fuse material. So the first basic property of a fuse material is its resistivity. It should possess low resistivity. This means that wires can be used which shall be thin, which will give less metal vapor, and after melting of the wire, less metal vapor in the arc gives lower conductivity and thus making quenching of the arc easier. So our first purpose is to make the fuse material as low its resistivity. So we should choose wires having low resistivity. The second property is low conductivity of the metal vapor itself. The third property is low melting point. This means the temperature of the fuse material for normal currents stays at a low value. Originally, only lead was used as a fuse material because of its low melting point, but as the resistivity of the lead is high, thick wires are required. For rewirable fuses, alloys of tin and lead or tinned copper wires are commonly used. In cartridge fuse, silver and silver alloys are used in fuses of lower ratings, and copper alloys are used in fuses of higher rating. An important characteristic of a fuse material is its current time relationship. For wire in which the heat is dissipated largely by radiation rather than by conduction at the ends, the fuse current or the fusing current is the minimum current to fuse the wire in such a time interval as shall be necessary for the wire to have attained its steady temperature, and can be calculated by using the relation I is equal to A d to the power n. So with the help of this formula I is equal to A d to the power n, we can calculate the amount of current taken by the fuse wire. Now, where I is the fusing current in amperes, D is the wire diameter in centimeters, and A is the or a constant whose value arises from material to metal, or it varies from material to material. The value of constant A for some material are, that is for copper it is 2530 or 2530, for aluminum it is 1870. Similarly, for iron, tin and lead the values are given. You may remember for copper and for aluminum. The approximate value of N is 1.5. The rating of any fuse depends entirely on its dimension, mounting, surrounding powders or liquids, enclosure and other factors which affects its heat dissipating factor or capacity, and its ability to extinguish arc after fusing. Dehydrating materials. Now, what are dehydrating material? Let us first understand. So students, as we all know that water is the material or substance from which the electrical circuits and all the electrical parameters should be avoided. So in case of circuits also, we require the circuit to be totally dry or it should not be moist. So for accomplishing this task, we sometimes deploy dehydrating materials. And the examples of this dehydrating materials are silica gel. It is an inorganic chemical. A colloidal highly absorbent silica gel is used as a dehumidifying and dehydrating agent as a catalyst, carrier, and sometimes as a catalyst. Now, calcium chloride and silica gel are used as a dehydrating breathers. So, this is used in case of transformer breathers. So, the details about this silica gel we will discuss in our next class. So, you just go through this class and make your notes properly. We will discuss about dehydrating material in our next class. So, thank you, students, for watching.